Welcome to Kessel Run Collecting, a place for fans of 3 3/4-inch action figures, playsets, and more. And now, here are your hosts, Eric and Rezakai.
Hello, listeners, to another episode of Kessel Run Collecting. I'm your host, Eric, and with me, Rezakai, aka Matt.
What's going on,
How you
guys?
doing? So we have with us here Chris Sutton, otherwise known as scifidioramaguy.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so we're gonna discuss ICCCon, which is where I met Chris, and but I actually know him from the online communities. I know I've seen his work here and there's about the interwebs. So we're going to start off here talking about some recent reveals that Hasbro had in their fan whenever. I think it's Wednesdays now.
Yeah, that's right. Obi-Wan Wednesday starting, I think, next week or week after next.
I don't know why they keep changing it. It's Fridays and it's Wednesdays, and they're just trying to be clever with the name. It's like, just stick with a day. So do you have any of those photos up, Matt?
I got the TVC collage one up. I'm sharing the screen on it right now.
Okay.
You go over that.
All right.
I found the single ones too. If you want any of the single pictures of it.
Oh no, that's good if that shows them all. Yeah. Any of you guys excited for any of these?
I'm pretty excited about I've always loved the Stormtrooper Commander.
Yes.
So to have him now be a vintage collection figure, and I saw the last couple of reveals with the Stormtroopers. Since they had the Rogue One Stormtrooper that has all the upgraded, the shiny look and the better articulation and just more of a polished looking armor, I knew that they would start to reuse that. And, so they can make a heavy Stormtrooper, just give him a heavy gun. They can make the Stormtrooper Commander, just paint his suit. So I think it's cool that they're making all these different guys, but I'm particularly excited about that Stormtrooper Commander because I've always loved that blue paint, and I have the Hot Toys version of that too, in 1/6 scale.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now, and I think I might pick it up. As far as the heavy gunner goes, is that supposed to be like a deluxe figure at all?
I don't think so.
It's from Force Unleashed, if I remember. Or no, it's one's Force Unleashed and one's from Battlefront. Yeah,
okay, because I thought I had seen it online, and the pre-order was like $1 or $2 more than the others, and so I guess if it's going under a gaming grate, they tend to be, $1 or $2 more.
Yep.
Because at first when I thought that's a deluxe, I'm like, come on, that gun, I think it was actually included with like a clone trooper or something in the past, and so they're not really adding new tooling. They're just adding cost because he has a bigger gun. So
I mean, I can assure you, if it's going to be a deluxe, it'll be much more than $1 more. It'll be like $5 more, $6 more.
I mean, quite honestly, that one's an easy pass for me. I can give a bigger gun to one of my regular stormtroopers. I can put a pauldron on one of my regular stormtroopers. I'm happy for, again, the Death Watch Commando. I like that we're getting a new droid with that security droid.
I didn't see that. Are these all vintage collection?
No, they are not. This is actually a
yeah, because I thought that security droid was a Black Series.
Black Series.
Same with the Leia.
Yeah, and the Finger and Dan. That's the so the three in the front are the Black Series.
Okay.
And the ones in the back are the vintage collection reveals.
I think what threw me was we are getting the vintage collection Finger and Dan.
Yeah.
So that threw me off. Honestly, I think that's the one. I'm the most excited for, because we haven't had that since Power of the Force 2. It's so ridiculously overdue, because quite honestly, for me, when I think of figures that always should have been done by Kenner, I think Tarkin, Rebel Fleet Trooper, Sand Trooper, and Figrin Dan.
Yeah.
And so to me, that was, I don't know what took them so long, quite honestly, because it's the next closest thing to an army builder. But I think with Hasbro's current philosophy, it makes a lot of sense. Because if you think about it, why are we getting so many Mandalorians right now? It's because they can reuse the parts. Yes,
Yep.
it's because Mandalorians are popular, but why did it take them this long to make some of these, like, the Death Watch Commando and stuff? It's because right now the factories are churning out X amount of, torsos or whatever, and so they're doing it all at once. The same reason why we're getting all these variations of stormtroopers and clone troopers right now.
Yeah, agreed. Like, I mean, the original tooling comes from that 188 or 186, that Return of the Jedi Boba Fett, and they redid him there last year, 2 years ago, and now they're using a lot of that. I'm sure that the helmet and some of the tooling is going to get used on him, though. I think some of the chest details and stuff will be a little different, like for the torso, maybe the legs. I don't know.
Yeah, because their gauntlets are different, their shoulders are different. The basic torso might be the same. I mean, I know with the animated figures there is a slight difference in the cut, but it's more that it's not the armor is different. It's just the animation makes it look different.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm like Chris. I'm excited for the new Stormtrooper mold on those. I ordered 5 of each. Might go more. I stopped at half a dozen because I couldn't.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean that's new. That's not only is that the new Super mold. That's the updated version with the rocker ankles that they did for both.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. The only one I pre-ordered was the Commando. And I think when I pre-ordered that, I don't even know if the Anakin was. Well, the Anakin should have been up because I think it's in the same wave, isn't it?
The Commando.
The Mandalorian Commando.
Yeah, is that in the same wave as the Anakin?
You know what? There's this wonderful place called Dorset will tell me. Give me a second. Or EE will tell me. Let me get this magical thing called the internet on me.
So I'm strictly. I know that there's a lot of. I mean, there's a lot of people that collect both the 6-inch, like the Black Series and the Vintage Collection. But my stuff is only 4-inch. I mean, I only do the Vintage Collection or the 4-inch, Legacy or the that type. The 6-inch line just never did it for me.
It's more of a novelty to me. Like it's like kind of like dolls. Like, why am I going back? Like, it reminds me of like because you can't make environments for them. So why they're basically just put on your desk and let them sit there. To me,
right?
Yes, the Anakin and the Mandalorian Super Commander are both in the same wave. They're both packed one per case, and the other three figures are 2 per case.
Yeah, when it comes to the 6-inch, I picked up 1 or 2 because when the first wave came out, I was like, nah, I'm not going to get any of those. But I remember we were having a real drought as far as the 4-inch stuff. And so it was kind of like, yeah, I'll just pick one up just to buy something. And then it was, I'm only going to get trooper figures. And then, well, I got Boba Fett, so I'll get the main bounty hunters. And then they did the realistic Rebels figures, and it was like, well, it's the only way to get them realistic. And at some point I said, oh, okay, I got to put the brakes on. I have maybe 30 some, but quite honestly, some of them, if they had made them super articulated and realistic like the Rebels figures, I never would have got them in 6-inch. And the thing is, they are nice, and I can absolutely see why a newer collector would get into them. but when you've been collecting for 40 years, it's just kind of like you can't really beat the love you have for the original scale.
Agreed. You know what's crazy to me? They did Jackson in 6-inch before they brought him to 3 3/4. And newer collectors are like, "Who is Jackson?" And that's old school folks are like, "We've been waiting for Jackson for 40 plus years."
Yeah, you got a point there.
What the heck were they thinking on that one?
We are overdue for a Endor Leia though too.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we haven't gotten a new version of her like all the way back to Figuring Dan.
Chris, what's your most wanted figure of any It could be a remake, repack, totally new. What's your most wanted TV?
One that I think that I would like to see come out.
Yeah.
I would like a really good version of Alec Guinness Obi-Wan, because they don't have a vintage collection of him. And I mean,
well, they did in the like 30th anniversary, was it? Subline.
But with all the new, like one of the really, really good head sculpts on the Mark Hamill figures is the Luke X-Wing from A New Hope and the Luke Stormtrooper. I think it's the same head, but that one really turned out well.
Oh yeah, they're good.
And I like that the different. I mean, it has that. I have a poster of Luke, and it's one of the coolest shots that I think is of Mark Hamill, and that figure catches it. It's whenever A New Hope, when Obi-Wan just says, the Force will be with you always, and then leaves, and they're all in the control room, and the door shuts, and Luke turns to the camera, and it's that, like, he's just absorbing that little chunk of wisdom, and the innocence of his face is just like, it's almost like, how did I get here? I mean, I'm on this big space station, and I'm with this guy, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and my gosh, there's a princess, and I'm with all these, and he's been exposed to so much in such a short period of time. And I just like the capture of that face. And I know I'm really extrapolating here, but I mean, it's just one of these things that, and you guys know as Star Wars collectors, it's all about that recreating the magic of when you were a kid. And the vintage collection in some of these figures, and Luke being one of them, just really knock it out of the park. And they do such a good job on the packaging and the sculpts and just making it look so amazing.
Yeah, I'm happy that we'll hopefully be seeing some more pilots reusing that body, because for the longest time, all the pilots had they were all kind of short with like that really wide-legged stance, like they used for the Wedge figure and
Right.
a couple and Luke and a couple of the other ones. So Matt, here you have his vintage collection pipeline. Luke from season 2 of Mando and HK-87. What is the HK-87?
That's also from Mandalorian. That is Magistrate Bruce Lee's granddaughter. What's her name? Magistrate
Right.
Lesbeth. Those droids that are hunting through the little village looking for Mando and for Ahsoka.
Okay.
I think that's what they. I think those are the ones they're talking about. If I remember correctly, let me double check just before I go off and say yes. That's it.
I think you're right about that.
Because there's a symbol on those heads of those droids that will be very, very interesting. What's going on here?
And Eric, did you say these are vintage collection ones?
Yeah, they're the pipeline figures, so there's no photos or anything for them.
My MeWe just crashed and it won't show me any text. That's great. Let me just look at real quick here. Hasbro pipeline. Line reveals TBC.
Well, actually, if you just search for the HK-87, it would probably take you to like StarWars.com and have a reference. and
Yeah.
then you would know.
We already got Lucas season 2 pipeline too. They already announced them. Remember, they also did the Dark Trooper, the Artillery Trooper, the Platoonian
Yep.
Raider.
So what are the pipeline figures? What's the difference?
Those they don't have a physical. They
Yeah,
don't have a physical figure to show you if they're in production right now. Here I'll show you real quick.
they're like really, really, really far advanced previews. Like, hey, we're working on this. Is like all the information they can really give out.
Here, let me stop sharing it. And I'll share that screen as soon as I can.
I'm also
Figure out
excited about the figures they're coming out with from. They revealed a Dark Trooper, the Luke at the end of the Mandalorian, and the yeah, those are the ones. The guy, the Clantunian Raider, which
Yep.
I guess is he the one that they had on the ATST
Yeah.
2-pack?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm really glad we're getting him because it's always disappointing when you get those figures that are exclusively with a vehicle. If you don't want it, and you're like, I don't want to have to buy an ATST that I don't really care
Right.
about just to get him. So I'm really, really hoping that means we're going to get Antok Merrick at some point.
Oh my gosh.
I was so upset when they're like, "Oh yeah, and you can only get them with the X-wing." I'm like, "You sons of bitches, Hasbro."
So that list I gave you, HK87 is not listed for TVC. He's listed for Black Series.
Okay, well then he's probably the one that's pictured there, the
Yep.
New Republic security droid. Then, okay.
Well, no, the New Republic Security Droid is different from HK. So here, I'll say it. So from the here, I'll show it again. I got a different screen to share. Here we go. So this was the 2 Black Series reveals. So when they said Luke Skywalker season 2, they were talking about for Black Series season 2 and HK87.
Oh, okay.
So because I thought that was odd that we already knew Luke was coming for TVC from like 2 months ago.
So
And
they're giving us 2 new droids from Mandalorian, but both of them are for Black Series.
mm,
Hasbro,
yeah.
this is why we hate you sometimes.
That's how it goes.
All right. Well, I think that's it for reveals, at least the ones we really care about. Actually, Chris just he came on earlier and just watched the Kenobi trailer just now.
Nice.
Yeah.
Just a little bit ago. So what do you guys think?
I'll let Chris go. He's him being the guest.
Sure. Yeah, I have. I liked it. I mean, I'm pretty excited. I want to know what life is going to be like for Obi-Wan in those 20 years. And I'm kind of interested to see what things were like on Tatooine during that kind of transition. And I know we see a lot of new characters that there's a few of these guys with the different paint jobs on their heads and the lightsabers and everything. I'm excited to learn, more about kind of Obi-Wan's journey. And I was talking to Eric about this earlier. If Obi-Wan will actually meet Vader, which I'm assuming since they're introducing, and they're hyping Hayden Christensen, they're going to have that. But the duel that Obi-Wan and Vader have on the Death Star kind of leads you to, he tells Obi-Wan, "We meet again at last." Then Eric brought up, he told Obi-Wan, "You should not have come back." So it kind of lends itself to the opening of they could have met on Tatooine, when Luke was 10 or whatever, and then not seen each other for years. So yeah, I'm stoked.
Matt?
I'm a spoiler guy, so I won't go into spoilers. I'm amped about who I saw. We saw Forlom in the
Oh
trailer.
I
yeah.
didn't see Forlom, really.
Yeah.
Obi-Wan's in this shootout, like on this rooftop, and you only see him for like a split second, but you see this, well, Forlom kind of running with his arms forward, like he's got blasters mounted on his arms, but he's doing like the little 3PO kind of shuffle as he's walking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me see if I can get you. I don't know. Let me share screen here, and I'll.
I'm sure
See if I can-
someone has a screen capture of that.
Wow, there we go. I think it's just the right one. May 17th. This is today. Oh, no, this is a fan made one. Darn it. Hold on.
I tell you what, I get so pissed off when I see these trailers hit and they try to make it look all professional, and I'm like, you know what? It sounds ridiculous, but that's one of those things I wish they would ban it. I wish they would ban fan-made trailers.
All right, here we go. Here it is.
Or at least it should have to say fan-made trailer.
Stay hidden,
Can you hear the audio?
or we will
Alright.
not survive. Leave us alone. When the time comes, he must be trained. Like you trained his father?
Burn.
We still want Kenobi. He's gone.
Maybe you've been looking in the wrong places.
There it goes.
I want every lowlife and bounty hunter.
There, Sam.
Got it.
Yep.
Yep.
I want every lowlife and bounty.
There he is. Pow, 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 pow. He's dual wielding this one, so right.
Yep. Love it.
Wow.
Love it.
Now the question is, you think they'll give us the Forlom? Because the Disney parks Forlom was really good.
Yeah, it is.
Yep.
I would agree.
Well,
So-
if I can make some predictions about, what we'll see as far as figures, the lead villain, I forget what her name is. The
Riva.
lead Inquisitor, you see? What's her name?
Riva.
Riva. Yeah, so we'll get her in Vintage Collection in 2025 in the fall. And
Okay.
and within a month of that, we will also get her as the deluxe figure, because not only will she come with her regular lightsaber, she'll come with the dual blades. That's the spinning version, and that'll be a deluxe figure.
Ah,
That's my prediction. That's what we'll get.
All right.
But we
well,
will
let me-
have every obscure figure in Black Series announced first.
All right.
So that's just my prediction.
I want the Grand Inquisitor, the fifth brother, and I think Riva is called the sixth sister or some shit like that. I can't remember what she's called, but I want them because we have the Grand Inquisitor and fifth brother in the 5 POA animated Rebel style,
Yeah.
and they would be the first characters we'd ever get. That would be, that's where the Grand Inquisitor is from. You see him in SA would be awesome.
I wonder if they would give us a new Baru and Owen, or would they consider them just not quote unquote action oriented enough? So I'm really curious about if we get them at all.
I don't have the young Owen. I have the young Baru White son, but I don't have young Owen Lars. So I wish I would have had that one.
Yeah, I've both the young versions and the old versions. But what I did, if you remember the Owen that came in the comic pack with the Raptor Legs Maul that was from the comic, the Visionaries comic.
Oh, kinda.
Yeah, so I think it might have been like a Celebration exclusive because it came in a big box and it had the comic in it, and then it had Raptor Legs Maul before Raptor Legs Maul was actually canon. because it was a Visionaries comic, and then it had Owen with a soft goods robe, and he wasn't as old as he is in A New Hope because it took place a little bit earlier. So he was maybe the age that Owen would be in the Kenobi series, maybe a little bit later. But I thought it looked close enough to how he looked in A New Hope, and the sculpt was a whole lot better than the Power of the Force 2 version. So that's who I'm actually using as my New Hope Owen.
Huh.
Well, I don't kind of hope we get. You know what would be kind of cool to see is a Cammy and well, they would be young too, like Luke though, wouldn't they?
Cammy and Fixer. Well, we got those in Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah, I know. Which they're mysteriously wearing almost the exact same clothes.
Yeah, yeah. I always thought that was funny. It's kind of like, how do we clue people in that this is Cammy and Fixer? Okay, well, where they are, they're in Anchorhead, okay, and they're wearing exactly the same stuff. So they probably have closets, like they find a piece of wardrobe that fits them, and they're just like, I'm gonna buy 6. I know these are gonna have to last me a while.
Right. Exactly.
You don't have that much fashion and variety on Tatooine, so when you find something that fits you, you're just like, I'm just going to take your whole stock right now. It might have to last me years, many, many years. The weird thing is, Cammy looks a little bit older. Fixer, I swear, looks almost younger than he did in the deleted New Hope stuff. Like he's son of Fixer or something like that.
Oh my gosh.
And I don't think they ever say their names in Book of Boba Fett either. So what if Cammy and Fixer had a son and daughter, and that was their son and daughter?
Well, no, it's only been like 10 years since A New Hope, so in the timeline, so not even that long. Which is one of my gripes about BOBF. Like, it's not. You should have just let Tamora Morrison be the close-ups and the voice, and let Daniel Logan be the body and the action shots, because it's only supposed to be like what a couple years after Return of the Jedi. So
by the end, it might be like a year that he was with the Tuscans, maybe at most.
We know with when he meets Mando near the end of the season that it's only been like 5 years after Return of the Jedi. So, all right. Well, this is something else we missed. Yeah, the new Trooper pack, all Phase 1 clones with the clone commander or clone lieutenant in it.
It looks like it looks like it's a page from a coloring book, and some kid, like, all he colored was just the blue.
It does look like that. You're right.
Color a clone.
I picked some up. Yeah, there were some gripes about people. They were wanting the red and the yellow captain and commander, and I'm like, they'll probably do this later, guys. Don't worry about it. So,
oh yeah, I'm sure.
I mean,
any chance at some repaints?
Yep. All right, stop that. Oh,
all right. So, do you want to hold off on new acquisitions, because I'd kind of like to get into, because I'm actually going to be talking about some of them from ICCCon.
Sounds good.
So yeah, let's get into that. So that was, what was that? Like probably 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago. Yeah, I went to I never know whether to call it ICCCon or ICCC. How do you say it, Chris?
I think it's an ICCCon.
Well, I've seen it both ways. Like, their logo is I and then 3 C's. But then people say ICCCon. I guess because if you just say ICCC, people are like, no, I don't see. I have no idea what you're talking about. But as soon as you add con to it, they're like, oh, convention. Okay.
Exactly.
So this was my first time there. Chris, I think you said it was your first time there too,
It
right?
was, yes.
Yeah, so both of us were there as vendors too. And so it was definitely smaller. Didn't know what to expect. I thought it was well run. I think they skimped on the dealer's room a little bit, because when the dealer's room wasn't that big to begin with, but then in the middle of it, they had a very large display for the 501st, and they had, I think they had it like a face of an indoor bunker or something like that. And they had 2 speeder bikes sitting there that people could go and get their photos on them. And then they had an ATST that was probably like, I don't know, half scale, maybe. It was still really big.
Oh, nice.
But about half scale or whatever, props sitting there. But then they had a lot of dead space. Like, it was those 3 vehicles, and then there was a lot of blank space. Like, you could have probably put 20 people in that area for a photo op. And personally, I thought it was a little bit excessive. Like, it was kind of cool, but I think they could have moved the border of that display back a little bit. And if they had done away with it altogether, they probably could have fit easily 10 to 15 additional vendor booths in there. So I kind of thought they were doing a little bit of a disservice, especially because people pay for vendor booths. That can then help the convention. So I thought that choice was a little bit odd, especially because when you go into the hotel, which is where it was held, not a convention center, when you head into that lobby area and where they have the tickets and everything, off to either side, they had some club tables. Like, they had, a table for the 501st and Mando Mercs, and the droid builders just kind of parked their droids there and everything. And they even had like a life-size prop dewback off to the one side. So they already had some displays out in that lobby area, and I just thought, like, why did you not have more vendors and instead have these really big prop displays that didn't seem to be getting a lot of activity? It's not like a lot of people were going there to get their pictures taken. Almost every time I walked by, like no one was really there. It just seemed to be taking up a lot of otherwise useful space. And then as far as how they had some other stuff arranged, there was like these little tiny rooms off of some of the different hallways. So they would have some stuff tucked in. Like, there was a couple club tables for, like, there was actually some non-Star Wars clubs. There was like a Battlestar club and a Aliens club, and they had little tables in this little tiny side room, and an area for gaming. And the panels I thought were nice because you didn't really have, at least the ones I was at, you didn't have to fight for a seat. It's not like you had to line up 3 hours in advance. I went to one that was a Clone Wars panel that had Ashley Eckstein, Matt Lanner, James Arnold Taylor, and Anna Graves that voiced Satine, and she also did some other characters. Like, I walked in pretty much maybe 5 minutes before the panel started. I had no problem getting a seat or anything. So I thought everything was run very well, but there are some things I would have changed too, I think. What was your overall impression, Chris?
When I got there, I didn't know what to expect, and I was pretty impressed with the camaraderie and the kind of overall family feel of a lot of people who knew one another. It was kind of nice to see these people that were online, and I've seen them before. I've talked to them before. I mean, I've even messaged them that that were kind of like all part of this Star Wars community. I think there were a lot of people there. It was clear that a lot of people there had done the show from the beginning, which I think it's in its 5th year. And so I was glad to make the connections and to talk to people. I mean, I met a lot of cool people, including yourself. Some persons who I did not, I've not met before. But I was pretty happy with the enthusiasm of the crowd. I've done huge cons before. I've done small toy shows before. Um, and with the exception of Celebration, this is the only Star Wars convention that I ever um, went to or set up at that was like predominantly um, Star Wars. And so I was glad to meet and talk to the people that made up the vendors, or the guy who built the dewback in the front lobby. I met him. He's actually a Civil War reenactor, which I am as well. And he told me that he makes like 1/6 scale custom Civil War figures, which I do too. And it was
Oh
just
wow.
kind of like, yeah, I know, it's just kind of an unusual thing. But yeah, I'm a huge history fan, and I love the 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 history and controversy surrounding the Civil War. And this guy was definitely a Star Wars fan. Obviously, why would you make a dewback and a thing that big if you weren't? Um, but it was nice to meet all these people, and um, I'm kind of sorry that I missed the costume contest. I heard it was amazing. Um, I did get a chance to meet Jim Swearingen, and he asked me to um, customize his Falcon. So I'm like, that was kind of cool. That was
That
kind
no,
of
no.
nice.
Who was this?
Jim Swearingen, remember the toys that made us?
Oh, okay, yeah.
So he's one of the original Kenner guys, one of the original Kenner designers, and he was in one of the rooms that were like, they had the kind of the offset rooms. They had like the photograph, like the panels and the autograph people, and he was in one of those. And so he was kind of doing his thing and telling the story, and I got a chance to meet him a couple times, and it was just kind of neat to meet one of the guys that you know was at the very very beginning of Kenner, and that started the action figures that we now have and love.
Yeah, it was definitely very, very, and I kind of expected this, but it was very vintage heavy, like original Kenner vintage.
You're right.
c-
I didn't expect that, but you're right. It definitely was.
yeah, because there was a lot of people. I mean, they were selling prototypes and you know pristine looking blue snaggletooths and stuff like that. You found a lot of that stuff there. Um, that was a little bit more common than you might find at some other shows. The one thing that really blew my mind was we were I was there with my wife and my wife's cousin, and we were staying at the same hotel, which was that was really nice. A lot of times, when you if a convention is being held at a hotel, a lot of times their rooms tend to be really pricey, and we end up staying at a hotel, down the street that's a little bit cheaper. Uh, and this one, we were actually staying at that hotel, and it was really nice. You get tired, you go back up to your room, or if one of us needed to grab lunch or something, one of us could go back up to the room and eat up there if they want, have privacy or bring food down. So that was really nice. And the entire weekend, we never left the hotel at all. We either ate there at the hotel because we had brought our own food, ate at the restaurant there, or we had food delivered. So Friday night, we were having food delivered, and I got the call from the front desk to go down and pick it up. And I head down to the lobby, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what the hell is going on? It was like a full blown swap meet going on. People had tables set up all over, were selling stuff.
Really?
Yeah, and so you were in the dark like me.
You guys didn't know about that?
No, no. And
that happens at a lot of hotels. Do hotel sales is what they're called.
I did
I
not stay
am
at the hotel. I stayed off
uh,
site.
okay. I am a true veteran. I have probably been to well over 100 conventions at this point, and I've never seen anything like this. And so I walk up to one of the people. I'm like, and I didn't recognize them. And I'm like, "Are you a vendor?" They're like, "No." I'm like, "Well, what the heck is going on here?" And they're like, "Oh, just anyone that wants to can set up. We're just doing it Friday night." And I'm like, "What?" And like my head just explodes.
Oh
You
my
have to,
And
gosh.
so
I'm gonna have to pull your convention card there, Eric. All right, I'm just gonna have to let you know. I'll go back at you. You haven't heard of hotel sales? The hotel lobby
okay,
sales?
yes, I have heard of room sales.
Yes, those are good.
However, I've never been to one where it is encouraged and actively supported, because generally a convention looks at it as, you want to sell your shit here, get a vendor table. Because I think a lot of times they see it as you're encroaching on the vendors. Like if you
Right.
buy something from someone Friday night that just tosses a table into the lobby, well, that's a person that might not buy from a vendor that actually paid hundreds of dollars to be there. So I understand where they're coming from. So it really surprised me. And then I heard about the room sales, which I did visit a number. As a matter of fact, Jake James was selling a few things, and one of the few things I bought that weekend, I bought an extra figure from him. But yeah, it was just pretty crazy. But all weekend it was room sales. You would just be walking down the hallway, and someone would have their door open, room sale, come on in.
Uh,
Um,
well, ICC is not normal, like a normal
yeah,
convention. Mike runs it.
exactly. Another thing they did different that I think Celebration has sort of done this. But Friday, we were surprised to find out Friday was VIP only the entire day.
At the
Where,
ICCCon?
yeah,
Oh,
Friday
wow.
was what?
yeah, Friday was VIP only.
Oh yeah, I knew that. Yeah, I was aware of that. And
Yeah,
I've seen hotel sales before where they have room to room sales. But the lobby sale, I didn't realize that there were people there
Oh,
that could just come in. Yeah, I'm sorry I missed it.
yeah. So it's a lobby. Oh, so they were actually sitting up in the lobby of the hotel, not just.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Well, just Friday night, but the room sales were going on, pretty much the whole weekend.
Hmm.
But yeah, that just blew my mind. I go down to pick up food, and I'm like, what the heck is this? Because it's also like when you're focused so much on the business end, and that you got to go there and you're running your business, and you're dealing with everything for that. Like a lot of times you don't really look at like what panels are going on or anything like that. All that stuff you end up looking at the last minute, if you even are made aware of it. So, I got to like 3 total panels. The Clone Wars one, and then there was 2 that I went to with some of the Kenner designers and stuff. Did
Yeah,
you get to go to any, Chris? Any of the panels?
so I did not. I was pretty much kind of adhered to my booth, so I was pretty content talking to the different guests and everything, and I had my girlfriend went with me, and she helped me, and she helped me set up everything. But she doesn't know, all the stuff, and that, like if people ask me questions on, how did I make this, or where did I get this from, or I recognize this piece, and what did you use, that sort of thing. She, obviously she couldn't answer that, but I don't want to miss an opportunity for that, and so I did not get a chance to partake in any of the panels, which those are one of the things. It's like, there's all the stuff that goes on that you want to do but never get a chance to. and this weekend was just kind of one of those examples. Next time, though, I definitely want to be a part of that, and get a chance to hear more of the panels, like the original Kenner people like you saw.
Yeah, I know. A lot of times when I'm vending somewhere, I end up in the same situation where I'm I'll be busy talking to a customer, and then I'll intend that, oh, hey, in 15 minutes I got to get out of here to go to this panel, and then something else sidetracks me, and then next thing I know, I'm like, oh, okay, so the panel started 15 minutes ago. Well, I guess I'm not going to that. And you're lucky if you get to one out of 3 or 4 that you might want to see.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. I thought quite honestly, I thought the booths were a little salty for the cost, for the amount of attendance. We'll probably be back, but one thing I'm going to do differently, I spent like 2 months stocking really, really, really heavy on diorama stuff because I thought, well, this is an action figure show. That's what's going to sell best. And then I still took some of the prop guns I have, but I didn't stock very heavy on it. On most of the stuff, I maybe had 2 that I took. Well, wouldn't you know, I pretty much sold out of the guns and made a little bit of a dent in the diorama inventory. So you kind of learn and adjust. And now I know if I go back, I'm actually going to stock heavier on the props and maybe less on the diorama stuff. It's
so what did you wind up selling? Like what were the heavy hitters? Like what were you? I don't know. You said the guns. What are like diorama stuff that you sell that was pretty popular?
It's really difficult to say because a lot of the sales, I would be talking with someone, but my wife is the one that like processes all the payments and stuff like that. And then a lot of people are like, oh, well, also give me one of these. I know Jake James bought a lot from me. He was probably one of my biggest buyers, and
friend of
like,
the show, Jake James, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, he buys stuff from me all the time online, so he picked up some stuff because he's there. Like he hadn't gotten the tie crawlers, and he bought like 2 of those, but he also bought a bunch of other newer things I had. And then there was one guy that bought like, oddly enough, like the 6-inch stuff tend to be poor sellers.
Really?
And so I only took 2 of all my 6-inch stuff, and all but 2 items sold. So I actually did fairly well on the 6-inch stuff, even though I don't necessarily sell a lot of it. I don't have a lot of different kits for it. It did fairly well. I know there was some stuff that didn't sell at all, but I have over 100 different diorama products at this point.
Sure. Did your tie crawlers? Those were for the 4-inch figures, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
What I did have a lot of people ask me about, which I don't make anything in this scale, is for like the Hot Toys 12-inch scale. I had a number of people ask me about, say, for example, the tractor beam generator, and they're like, oh, how much would it cost for you to make that in 12-inch scale? And I'm like, a lot. that thing is like a brick as it is. To scale it up, I said, yeah, it would be a lot. And I said, the price tag, if I calculated it out, would maybe scare you, but then I realized that you collect Hot Toys, so it probably wouldn't scare you as much as I would think it would. Hot Toys makes nice stuff, but when you're talking almost $300 a figure, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I had a number of people ask me about 12-inch stuff. I said, well, message me or whatever. Of course, that usually doesn't happen unfortunately.
Right. Right. But yeah, I had a lot of success with my my custom A-wings. Every one of those are gone, and I had a lot of see them on the picture now. I had a lot of props like like the power boxes and everything that you see on the streets of Tatooine. So I had a lot of those that sold. I had um, my custom droids were a hit too, which was kind of nice. So I just took a lot of the regular, modern figures or modern, droids that they have from like the Legacy line or the just the like the not the vintage collection, but the last several lines for the 4-inch scale, and just weather them. And so the weather droids seemed like they were, kind of one of the more popular items. And I made the droids in different colors and that sort of thing. And astromechs are always kind of fun to work with and to weather. So it was kind of nice.
So was this A-wing pictured? Was this exactly one of the ones that you had there? It looks like
No, that one's been gone for a while. So that was one. There was a yellow one that was sold. There was a green one. I try to do different colors, to give that kind of just to kind of give it that kind of expanded universe sort of feel, like a ship that you may have heard about or whatever, and so I kind of play with the colors and make them different. So but that blue one was one of my favorite ones that I did, because I like that kind of cobalt blue, and I stuck with the classic stripes where it has like the white down the middle, and then like the sides are the ones that are colored. But I think this next run, I've got two that I'm gonna start making. I might just I don't know, might do like a different set of colors for that and see what I come up with.
now, where did you take this picture? Because that's some interesting rock.
Yes. So by my house, there's this little area that it's a few miles away, and it's this factory. And in the back of the factory, they have all these rocks were just dumped in this one area. And some of them are like this huge, like this red kind of clay looking brick or rock. And the bottom, which you can see in the right of the picture, is just, this other kind of gray slate that was kind of like ground up. I mean, I'm assuming that's all rock, but this stuff has like been there for years and it's kind of overgrown. So I drove by it one day and it's like, man, that's actually it's kind of a cool sight. So parts of it look like Tatooine, or some other kind of rocky planet.
Yeah, I mean, it really looks like where you would picture the Jawas, ambushing R2 or something like that.
Right. So, yeah, that's all it is. So there's just a place, a little nook that I take a lot of pictures with. It's just a great backdrop for that. I'm all about staging, obviously, and you are too, with those of us who work with dioramas, to sell your product with the right background is key. I mean, I can put the same thing on my kitchen table, but if you see the kids' diapers and a box of Cheerios, it's not as glamorous, right? So
yeah,
it kind of sells it and it makes it a little more marketable. So
yeah, I recently got a light box, because trying to get good lighting anywhere, it was always a challenge. And finally I said, man, I just need to break down and get a light box. and so I always know I have enough lighting, and my photos are a lot better. I tend to do all my stuff just on a black background.
Yeah.
But yeah, it works pretty good.
Yeah, I got a Lightbox 2 a couple of years ago, and you're right. It was a good investment. You can take it, and it's in a contained area. It looks professional. You have like the black, the white, or the colored slide that you can put in the backdrop that's going to set off your P's.
Mine, I don't understand why they give you black, white. Okay, they make sense, and then blue and red. And I thought, why didn't they make one of them green screen green? that like that seems like that would have been that seems like that would have been something smart to have in there, but
right,
they
right,
don't.
makes sense. Yeah, I got the one that I got came with like a black, white, tan, and blue. This is one of my favorite ships to do. Gosh, I love the snow speeder, and I love that vintage collection snow speeder.
Oh yeah, where it's a little bit better scaled.
Yes, with the 2 seats, I love that. And on this one, what I did was if you look at the barrels, so I removed the barrels from the ship, and I painted them with this metallic color, and then weathered them, so you can kind of see that metal looks different than what the actual ship looks. So it's kind of it's subtle, but it's a different.
I like the offset. It just makes the detail pop a little bit more.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, how long does it take you to do something like that?
One of those that probably took me a couple of weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, maybe a month. The different types of paint that I use, I try to go, and I found this spray paint called Krylon Fusion for plastic.
Mm-hmm.
And I found it about 5 years ago, and I went to Ace Hardware, and I noticed that they were all gone. And
and replaced with Rust-Oleum, I'm guessing.
Yes.
So
I go in the back, and I asked this guy, I'm like, you guys used to have this Krylon Fusion. He's like, yeah, the Krylon Fusion for plastics. It was specifically for plastics. They went and they did Krylon Fusion for everything. So it's a plastic, wicker, wood, metal, generic one. But the one for plastics really adhered to it well. So this guy was like, yeah, we're dumping all of our stuff. And because these are $6 a can. So I'm like, do you have any left? And he shows me these 3 tubs. There was 150 cans. And I'm like, I will buy these. He's like, really? I said, yes. He's like, well, I'll do $2 a can then. I'm like,
oh,
great.
wow.
So I bought them all.
Well, I know Walmart used to carry Krylon a lot more, and then they switched to Rust-Oleum too.
They did.
So where you can still find Krylon in pretty good supply and pretty good variations is Lowe's. Also, if you have a Sherwin-Williams paint store, they carry it, and they can order it by the case. If it doesn't mean that even because they can do that, they necessarily can't get you everything, but they can order it by the case if you need it. Now, for resin, because that's a kind of plastic, paint doesn't want to stick to that very well either at times. No. And I was using Krylon Fusion as a primer. Now, what I would get, and they have it at Lowe's, which is about the only place I can get it anymore, really, is that in Sherwin-Williams. They have camouflage colors. They're ultra flat. So they actually have a little bit more grip to them than even the regular fusion does. At least that's what I found in my experience.
Okay.
But yeah, it's hard to find, and I would still have problems sometimes with resin where I could get the highest quality painter's tape and I would mask something off, and the paint just goes and peels right off with the tape. Not necessarily it would peel off if you didn't mask it, but that it just didn't have that bite to it. And so as a test, I thought, I don't even know if this is going to dissolve the resin or whatever, but I tried automotive etching primer in a spray can. And that is generally designed for like hard to stick metals like aluminum and things like that. And since I've started using that as a primer, I think I've only ever had like one time where I had mask or painter's tape peel something off. And I just use regular Krylon over top of it, but as my primer, I do the etching primer. Now, with what you're doing, it's a different type of plastic, and the fusion probably works just fine.
Right. Have you used frog tape to mask off your stuff?
I don't know if I used that brand. I had used whatever I used. It was like a purple color, and it was supposed to be like minimum stick or whatever. So it
if you try frog tape, they make frog tape and it's green. I mean, surprise, surprise. And they make a yellow version too that's very delicate. So a lot of the Legion members, like, we'll use that for our armor, and we'll put like that'll streak across, because most, like, my armor is PVC for my Stormtrooper uniform, but a lot of guys have it as ABS plastic. Some is PVC, but any one of those surfaces, this stuff will adhere to, and it really doesn't streak. And I've had that same luck with doing the models in the ships with that frog tape. So that might be a choice. I mean, that might be something that you might want to try and just see. It's pricey, but it works.
Well, it actually just the basic cheapo painter's tape actually works good for me now, as long as I prime it with that etching primer, because that's almost more important than really the tape. A lot of times, why you want to get the different tape is to not damage your surface, and damaging the surface wasn't the problem. It was that it was pulling the tape off of what I was masking.
Wow.
But and it didn't happen all the time, but I noticed it almost been like it was getting worse. So I don't know if it was like something they were putting in the tape or not putting in the tape.
Yeah.
But this one's an interesting one. What made you decide to go with silver over the canopy?
I just thought it would be kind of a cool look. I mean, it's kind of more of a mysterious, like it's something I thought that would be different. I hadn't done before. So I put the kind of metallized look over the canopy to match the rear thrusters there. And I don't know, I just thought it kind of gave it more of a mystique, and I could even weather the canopy. And then I thought, you know what? The Empire has confiscated Rebel ships before, just like Rebels have confiscated Imperial technology as well. So I thought, well, I'll put this one up with an Imperial cog on it and see what that looks for. So
now on the side guns, because this is the Last Jedi version of
Resistance version, correct?
Yeah, and I'm not real familiar with those. Did you swap out the side guns as a modification, or was that
they came like that? Yep, they came like that.
Okay.
Yeah. So they had the guns. That's how they all came. But I believe they were white, so they weren't really the metal looking, the silver looking. So I wanted to kind of dress that up to give that more of a, of a kind of a harder look.
That one. Now this one, I thought you had this one at ICCCon.
I had one like that. That one is gone.
Okay,
Yeah, but I
and
had
that was
one.
that green Guion speeder or whatever from episode
What's that?
1, right?
What is that? Is that the one from Feed City? You're saying the episode?
Yeah, it was called like the
Yes,
Guion speeder or
it
something.
is. Yep, it is.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So I thought I'd kind of do just a different look. So I tried that kind of cobalt blue, and white is always a popular choice if you want to weather something and streak it. So um, yeah, and that base that he's sitting on with the kind of like a sandy surface and the almost like temple ruin kind of backdrop. That is the first diorama I ever did.
Oh, it was just
Yeah.
supposed to be like part of a street.
It was supposed to be, actually it's for 1/6 scale figures.
Mm.
And I think if you look at the whole thing, it's pretty clear that it was my first one.
What
And so
year
that
was this,
kind of a
Chris?
tougher one. I learned a lot by doing that. I learned a lot what not to do. But that is basically that's a diorama that I use for 1/6 scale figures, because you see that little wall on the left that's kind of protruding out.
Mm-hmm.
That you can actually move forward, so you can have it. I had it so where there's like a figure that can actually step out, and I use of all things to have it stick up straight. A can of motor oil is the perfect size to kind of weight that, to give it enough room for a figure to walk through, but also sturdy and tall enough to keep that thing from moving if it's outside and it's windy. So I usually have like that piece on the left is normally about 5 inches closer to the camera, and it would, in other words, the nose of that speeder would be going into those separated walls, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So one thing forgot to ask earlier on that we usually do is, so what was your first experience with Star Wars? Whether it was like through the book, the films, the collecting.
So
Like
I
what?
went. One of my very first experiences was my dad took me to see the movie on a weeknight, and it had already been popular, but it was fairly new, and I went there, and I just recall coming out being transformed. I'd never seen anything like that, and I'd never experienced anything like that, and I just recall being in love with it from the very first time that I saw it. And you know going to the store, going to Venture, and finding those figures. My very first figure was R2D2, and I recall I had to save up, and it was $1.49. But I must have played with that figure for weeks. I mean, and it was just that figure, and it's a piece that only the arms move and the head clicks, and that's pretty much it. And it was just, toys for me as a kid, and Star Wars for me was such a transformation, um, and such a huge part of my growing up, because I looked at the world, I guess, and I looked at Star Wars in the way much like kind of Luke is staring at that sunset, you know, um, kind of with those naive eyes, and where do I go next kind of thing. And the older I got, the more I just gravitated to it. And now Star Wars is just such a part of my life that I truly can't imagine living life without it. And it's in my DNA. And whenever we dress up and we go to a hospital, or we go to a movie premiere, or like we just had the St. Louis Symphony Orchestra just did Star Wars Sunday, Star Wars weekend, where they had the Return of the Jedi playing on screen, and then the symphony plays like along with it live. And so we stand out there for guests to come up and take pictures. And it never seems to amaze me the people that I see with the crowd, like the people that come out to see Star Wars, the ones that are their moms are holding them and they're infants, to people who are in their 80s and they're loving it and they're wearing Star Wars t-shirts. And that's one thing that I've always loved about going to different conventions and talking to people about Star Wars, is that whatever role we have outside of our collecting, whatever role we have in society, whatever part we play, or whatever class we belong to, when you start talking about Star Wars with a fellow fan, that wall drops. And so you're all on a level playing field. And it doesn't matter what job you have, or where you come from, or how much money you make, or what neighborhood you were raised in, or what state you're in. It's such a camaraderie, and it's such a loving likeness that kind of brings people to get together, and it binds them and makes them one.
Now, did he ever end up in one of these situations? I've been in this a couple times where, someone realizes you're a Star Wars fan. They're like, "Oh yeah," and they want to like engage in a conversation, but your like geek level with Star Wars is so high that it's almost, and I don't want this to sound overly harsh, but it's almost like when you're talking to a little kid and you kind of like dumb down how you talk for the little kid. And it's like there's sometimes I feel like that because they're like, yeah, that Han Solo is really cool, right? And you just want to be like, do you know who Mara Jade is? And they would be like, Mara who? And you're like, oh, this is going to be a rough conversation because I'm going to have to explain things to you.
Right. Yeah. And I think we've all met that fan who has that kind of almost that beginning knowledge of Star Wars. They love it. They don't know a whole lot of semantics about it, or the offset characters.
And you don't know where to start with them because you're like, oh, okay, I want to read you into this, but I'm not exactly sure whether we need to start at the Star Wars 101 or the middle school level. Do I start with the books?
Right. Yeah.
They go, how is Darth Maul alive at the end of Solo? And you go, well, do you have time to watch 5 to 7 seasons of Clone Wars and then Rebels?
Right. I mean, there's a lot of things. I'll be honest. There's pockets of Star Wars history that I've missed, either through Rebels or through Clone Wars, or not reading certain books. But that kind of that's one of those opportunities that I look at as just another way to kind of invite that fellow fan into a larger world, and just say, hey, he is cool. Han Solo was amazing. That he, after all, Return of the Jedi, after the movie Return of the Jedi, they wrote books about it. They did this, and and more often than not, that kind of works. It kind of gives them those bigger eyes and that kind of aha moment and that kind of slight grin, like, wow, I learned something new. but it's also kind of neat to look and reflect back to, like, I was there once, and it's nice to see that that joy and that just prism in their eyes, that light that is just like, man, I love Star Wars so much, and they just want to talk about it. They just want to tell you how much they love it, and like you mentioned, like how cool Han Solo is. So yeah, that is fun. It's nice to meet those people, and it's nice to kind of get to kind of kind of rope them in a little bit, and give them a little nugget of some of the things, or some of the things that you think they might like. And it's you can't like have a huge discussion about Shadows of the Empire, or who is Kyle Katarn, or what happened in the other games. um but I think it's always fun to have that kind of opportunity to kind of delve in, and just kind of share some of your knowledge with it.
Yeah, and I can see it being overwhelming for someone, for people like us. We got it piecemeal over time because
Exactly.
we absorbed it as it was coming out. And I can imagine for a new fan being like, oh my gosh, where the heck do I start? Because
Inundated,
there's
sure.
just so much there. It's almost easier to tell them what to avoid. Like, okay, if you see anything called the holiday special, just
Exactly.
move
You're clear of
along.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
so how long have you been in the 501st then?
Since 2000. So
Wow. I think you got me beat. I'm not sure. I know I have my trading card from 2009, and
Yeah.
it was before that. I don't know how much before that. Maybe 207, maybe somewhere like that.
Yeah. So I went to the Chicago Comic-Con in 99, and 90, 98, 99, and I met this guy, the Chicago cop named Javier. And he's the one that kind of got me interested. He stopped and talked to me about it. And it's like, man, I love that thing. And so I found out where to get the TK. Now I've got an FX suit. Do you have a TK uniform?
No, I have a Biker Scout
Okay.
That's my main one.
So yeah, I got it, and I'm like, you know what, this is awesome. And back then, there wasn't like a whole network of Legion officers and troopers, much like this one is now, like we have now. It was more like Yahoo groups. So you're going through emails for the first probably 5-6 years of that before it gets completely organized and mainstreamed.
Now I should know this, but I don't remember offhand. What year was it founded?
I believe, wasn't it? Did Alvin Johnson found it? Was it 97?
Yeah, I thought
I
it
believe
was.
that's correct with the special edition releases.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you were in really early, and I'm guessing you probably are one of the few people with a 3-digit TK number.
No. So I chose.
Oh, okay.
I chose a 4.
Oh, okay.
My birthday year and my birthday day. So yeah, I chose a 4 one so I wouldn't forget it.
Yeah, I have a 4. My wife had to take a 5-digit, so.
Oh man. But yeah, I've been in it since 2000, and I love it. It's an amazing group to be a part of.
My first exposure to them was at the first convention I had ever been to, and long story how I ended up at that convention was I was invited because I helped very minimally. I helped with a Star Wars fan film. And so, I knew there was people with stormtrooper costumes out there. I vaguely had heard of this club, the 501st. And I remember going to this convention. I was just like, oh my gosh, there are real frickin' stormtroopers here, and it blew my mind. And then I was at a toy show that the 501st would go to, and I was there, and they would have a table set up, and I'd be talking to the people. I'm like, that'd be so cool, man. I'd love to be a biker scout. And they're like, no, no. And, they kind of explained to me about everything to do. And so I kind of I didn't have a ton of money at the time. So over the course of maybe about a year, I got everything I needed. It's like I saved up enough money to get armor. Then I saved up enough money to get the helmet, and went about putting it together that way. But yeah, amazing experience. One of the things I kind of checked off my bucket list was I got on stage with Weird Al Yankovic.
That is, I don't have that yet, but that's awesome. I've got a couple other guys on our unit that have. I hear he's an amazing person.
Yeah, because I always just wanted to meet him, and the funny thing is I've been a fan since I was a little. But my wife and I, one of our first dates was we had gone to Hershey Park, which you probably know Hershey, PA, because of the chocolate.
Sure.
And we went to the amusement park there, and in their amphitheater, which is a rather small little stage, and it's in the middle of the theme park. Weird Al was having a concert. And that was, I think, like our second or third date was to go see Weird Al Yankovic.
That's cool,
Hershey,
man.
So. And it was funny because I'm there in the audience, and I'm kind of singing along, and the one guy sitting beside me turns to me. He goes, "Do you know all the lyrics to his songs?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I know. It's sad."
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's great. That's funny. Well, that's kind of a cool moment in time.
All right, well let's bring it back around to some of the stuff here on our collecting podcast.
Chris, when you make dios, let me ask you, what's your preferred material to use for like stone and the wall? Is it like foam, or is it like
yeah? So what I'll use is like that foam insulation you can get at Lowe's or Home Depot, where it's
Owens Corning and stuff like that.
Yeah, so it's like pink or blue, and it's like 1 inch thick to 2 inches thick.
Oh yeah,
yeah. So I will take that, and I'll use a foam cutter, right, which is just like a
the hot knife type.
A hot knife, yep. And you can you can use one of those, and you can take it, or I'll take like a drywall knife, and I will cut off the first layer with a drywall knife, and it's so jagged, and it comes out so uneven that it looks great just to paint over, and the ridges get filled in like rock. So it really is just a neat kind of and I'm simplifying it, of course, but I mean, it's all you do is you basically just take this old, like an old hacksaw or a knife, or in this case a drywall knife, and then I cut and carve out pieces that I want to make it look like rock, or I can I've done like I did a 40K table for a D&D shop that was a 4x8 sheet, and I used realistic water for a stream. That stuff takes forever. So I kind of got away from doing the water stuff because it's so time consuming. But with that foam, you can pretty much make anything you want, and it's great. It's just such a great medium to do anything like that. So
now, when you paint it, do you use the special styrene model paint? Because some styrofoam dissolves when you try to paint it.
So what I found out the hard way, excuse me, was using spray paint is gonna really disintegrate it. But I used just latex house paint like you put inside your walls like painting an office or a bedroom.
Oh, and brush it.
And brush it on. Correct.
Right.
I brush it on. And then once I'm done with that base layer, then I'll put on like a dark wash, right? Or something else. If I want to put on like if I'm going to make a rock, I'll put, like a light gray base, and then a gray and a green kind of wash over it, and or like with the desert, it's the same thing. Make it a tan backdrop with kind of a brownish, kind of wash, and just kind of fill in the cracks, and just kind of, I'll even use for like smoother surfaces. I'll take like drywall spackle, and I'll just rub it around the surface to where it actually catches, some of the paint. So I'll just kind of take that and I'll spread that on top of the styrofoam first, or the foam core, and then paint that the base color, and then do the wash that kind of catches the ridges and the imperfections. That'll kind of give you different levels of paint.
Yeah, I learned the hard way too on using spray paint on the insulation foam. Or a trick I occasionally use is getting some PVC glue, like some regular Elmer's glue, or just some or Mod Podge, and just using a brush and giving it a light layer to seal it.
Well, if you go to, might be a hobby shop or a Hobby Lobby or something you have to go to, they actually make spray paint, model paint that's made for styrene. Because back when I was
Really?
racing, back when I was racing RC cars, I found out about it, and so you can actually use it's. I mean, you think about it, a lot of model kits are styrene, so it has to
Sure,
be
yeah.
safe. So it has to be safe for those. So still, it'll work with styrofoam. Now, the one case where regular paint was fine was my wife was making some styrofoam tombstones for Halloween, and having it dissolve a bit of the styrofoam actually kind of aged it and made it look weathered and stuff like that. So as long as you didn't use it too heavy, it actually kind of added some of the detail that we were going for. That was kind of cool. But
Yeah, and that's actually a pretty cool trick, because you're right. I did the same thing too when I tried to spray paint it, and it just kind of dissolved it a little bit, and I just kind of worked around the imperfection. But yeah, it kind of gave it that kind of that warbled, disintegrated look.
now on this TIE bomber, what is going on along the cockpit edge? It looks like a dog chewed it or something.
So what I did was I took a foam cutter, and I just pressed it on the edge of the canopy and made it look like it was just blasted out, almost like an ejectant, like a pilot would eject, right? So the kind of theory behind this was this guy wanted to make like a remnant TIE fighter, so TIE bomber. So I found this piece, and I didn't have a canopy to go with it. So I just said, well, this would be something like if the pilot ejected himself, right, and he shot himself out of the cockpit, the door's gone. He's the ship somehow either landed in the water or landed in the sand or something and didn't totally disintegrate. And he started building it back together. So I have the separate bombs that might have fallen out of the inner part, and kind of placed them on the top of it, and then I had the panels that had kind of one part of the panels kind of jetting out, yeah, and just had some wire sticking out of there, like he had just kind of tried to repair it. So it was one of these things, like, whenever if I find these ships in the wild, sometimes you got to work with what you get, right? So I'm like, well, I don't have a canopy, and this thing's a bit dinged up, so I'll see what I can make. And the customer loved it, so it sold pretty quick.
That's
pretty happy
cool
with that.
So here is here is your Falcon, which this is the only exterior shot I have of it, but
really,
man, just the amount of time that had to have taken.
I know. That was one of my that took me. That was my very first one, which I kept.
Oh, okay.
So that took about a year. Because mine. So I did 5 Falcons, and they were all legacy Falcons. So I sold 4, and I kept the very first one. So what I learned about doing this ship is that whenever I painted that, and a lot of this is just, these are all acrylics, right? So these are all just, these are the cheap paints you can get in Walmart and Target, like the apple barrel ones.
It's nice because you can get so many slight variations of color too.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what I started doing was, weathering a ship is pretty easy to do. Like if you want to just get a ship basically, and you want to just make it look just a lot more authentic to the Star Wars universe, I've seen guys online just get like a thing of black paint and just go to town and wipe it off, and that looks great. But what I thought was black was too harsh of a line. I used it underneath. You can see where the stormtroopers are standing. You can see the parts that are on the very bottom are darker. I used black on the bottom of the ship, but all over the rest of it, I used a color called pavement gray, which is the darkest gray you can possibly get before going to black. And so I use that all over it. And then it's just one shade lighter than black, but I think it seemed to turn out a little bit better. And it made the black at the bottom turn out pretty well. But I found that this type of plastic on the Legacy Falcons is very porous. So if you look on the right-hand side, you'll see several streaks of different, like, intensity of gray. You'll see different lines in there. And the first ones were not intentional. I left them on too long, and they did not come out. But it worked. But with the Falcon, with the Legacy Falcon, if you put paint on it, you've got at the max about 30 seconds before you need to wipe it away before it stains and adheres to it. And that was kind of unusual because I wasn't used to that kind of that kind of paint staying so thick. But for whatever reason, this one, it really sunk in pretty quickly.
Now I like how you added some hoses and things like that to the landing gear.
So I went to the same place, Ace Hardware, and when I was picking up all those cans, one of the managers asked me what I was doing, and I told her, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, we have a bunch of just we've got parts that we don't even use anymore." So she had this box in the back of like parts of screen, miniature vents, and all these small little bitty. These were hoses, I guess, for a fuel line or something, or for like an RC car or something. But they're these small little bitty tubes, and I thought the hydraulics on the Falcon. I mean, that's what this thing is missing. So I took these tubes and just wrapped them around each one of the things, and it turned out pretty well. So I was pretty excited about that.
Yeah, I have here. So and I don't have my Legacy Falcon in front of me. Was anything removed from this, decals or anything, or is this
No,
pretty much stock?
that was all stock, so it looks just like that.
Yeah, when I saw the comparisons, I was like, he didn't add that much to it, right? Like it had to be more detailed than just this, but
yeah,
the comparison is. Now,
yeah.
did you have to somehow remove this part to be able to?
Yes, we did. So here's what happened. So the Legacy Falcon actually does come apart in pieces, and to get the detail of that back cockpit, you have to remove and take the ship apart. It is an absolute pain, but that's the only way to get all those details in there.
That is just amazing. The
Yeah,
difference.
thank you. That was quite the chore to do, and the back of that, that's a circular piece that comes right out. So that was kind of cool to just have to be able to sit outside and and just kind of have that thing in your hand and distress it. And inside the Falcon as well, like with the sick bay and the other parts that I customized, I had to get in there and really take apart, like in the center where they have the old classic, canopy where the ship, like it's, you spin around and you have the the cannon spinning on top.
The gunner stations.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of a waste of space. So I took and I removed that gun and just took the whole cannon, just took the whole cockpit, the gunner thing out, and I made it that little room where Leia and Han first kiss. And I took on the bottom of that stand. If you look into the cockpit, the bottom part is empty because there's glass above it and below it. So to cover that up, I took off the top of a spray paint can and I set it inside there. And I found this this skull, like this kind of chewing tobacco top that was more like a metal grate, and I put it on top of there, and it looked like a metal. It looked amazing. So I glued it on top of there and painted it silver and used that as my floor. And then I put I made the wall a distressed color, and I hung up the 4 gas masks on the side when they grabbed the mask and went down to that big slug thing in Empire, and just kind of made that as like a little bitty, like a control room or work room, and was pretty happy with the results.
I tell you, with the cost the Falcon goes for, man, I would have trouble. There's some stuff where it kind of has like this. You could probably graph it out where once something reaches a certain value, I'm like, oh man, I don't want to do anything to take away the value.
Right.
I think I would have a lot of, because I saw this and I'm like, ooh, I should do that. And I'm like, wait a minute, my Legacy Falcon sits in a corner of my room because I don't really have a place to display it.
Right. Yeah, it's a huge piece, man. I mean, it really is, but it's one of the ships that I decided if I'm going to make something unique and have it just dressed and stand out, it's going to be that.
I need to get a couple replacement gear because I had mine gifted to me, and some of the landing gear were missing from it, and I was hoping to find some at the convention, and
I had a set.
Oh, you do?
I had a whole set of, well, they're gone now, but I had a whole set of custom landing gear, which I did.
Yeah, there was there was one person at the lobby sale that had a set for like $90, but the thing is I think I need like 2.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they're pretty pricey, man.
Well, I actually got someone had showed me there was like some Thingiverse 3D files. So I thought about printing my own, but I'm like, then I would have like 2 that they might look awfully close, but they're not. It wouldn't actually complete it, so I'm like, I'll probably try to.
My advice is,
more
so
interest.
I distress the actual plastic ones, and I've used the 3D printed ones before. And while they do look cool, they're brittle.
Yeah, that's the other thing too.
So I would not want to. Yeah, they're brittle. You will absolutely, if you move that thing. I mean, if you have them stuck on there, like mine, my landing gear is super glued to the bottom of it, so they're not coming off.
Oh yeah, they do not snap in with a whole lot of force.
No.
I think they designed them that you can easily take them on and off, and you don't really risk breaking it. I
Right.
remember my vintage Falcon; those rear landing gear were so ridiculously tight that
Yeah.
it's like once you got them lowered, which pretty much required putting a screwdriver in there and hitting it with a hammer to drive it down.
Yeah.
It's like, they're just down forever.
Right.
They're never going to be put up.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
It was pretty extreme. But I want to get into your Spice Mines diorama.
Yeah. So that's a back wall.
Okay, so I was trying to figure out if this was from something else or if this was like a carved piece of something.
No, that was once a flat piece of foam core, like insulation. That piece is pink, or once was. So
Oh wow, okay.
so that piece that you're looking at is 3.5 feet tall.
Wow.
So can you see where there's a clear seam almost towards the bottom. That's the first level. So
Okay.
those 2 bottom areas have cages in them. There's like bars in them.
Yeah, with some of the photos it was kind of hard to tell what was connected to what and the different levels and
Right. So the whole thing, it's 5 feet tall by 7 feet wide. So I've got a very, very small room in the house that is my Star Wars room, and it fits right up against that. It's just it's a great little piece. But yeah, I painted that. I took the drywall saw and I scraped off the first level. And then I took off I took a bunch of pieces from all like old, G.I. Joe parts, or like different engine parts, and I wanted to make kind of an engine room looking thing. And so I put some pieces on there. I use a lot of old G.I. Joe. There we go. Yep. So those 2 pieces that you can see, those 2 long tan pieces, those were elevator, like the left and right elevator to the G.I. Joe Defiant. I think it's the big like.
Oh my gosh, no! When you said they're from, and I'm like, and you mentioned elevator, I'm like, please don't say the Defiant.
Yeah. So I found those pieces at a toy show, and I'm like, man, this would be great to use. So I got that, and I thought that would be awesome. And so I painted those, and it looked awesome for just like this, just like a an engine room. So I spray painted them white. They come in that same kind of gray as that rock is, that kind of darker gray. And so I just basically took the thing, spray painted them white, distressed them with rust, and then fitted them inside there. And all of those three things at the bottom, those are clone chambers for Palpatine. Yeah, and that little square that you have the hand on now, that is the vent that's in the bottom of the room, the air vent that goes that's just in your floor. So I had to cut around that to make sure. Yep, to make sure that I could get airflow there. But so I used those three. Yeah, so that's the second tier, and so I used to the left of that, to the left of the little of the first kind of little engine part there. You see the rusted piece. There's a GI Joe, like there's some kind of like engine or some kind of turbine to one of their backpacks or something, and I use that as a small little bitty like engine part to put inside the wall there. And below that, I had this small little spigot of water that I wanted to use, and that again is an upside down GI Joe like exhaust panel for one of the things. Now those turbines are from a place called there's a model kit called Pegasus. Pegasus made it's a Russian company which made these kits that were engine parts or turbines that you could use for gaming, and they're made to be used for like small, like miniature gaming.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I took those things out. Man, those things are a pain in the what. And they absolutely had these small little bitty parts that would make all these little engines. And so I just modified them and made them longer to fit like a 4-inch scale action figure. And yeah, they turned out great. So I just started creating and making up different parts. And those wires that you can see, those are some of the wires and the pieces that I got from the Ace Hardware box of Greeblies and parts. I found some, those little tubes and the hoses you can buy at Home Depot that are on a rack with all the fences. You can just buy them by the foot.
Yeah.
I just bought some clear tubes that I put in and just made it with engine parts. Just put a bunch of angry Ugonauts down there, working on them and everything. And
as far as like wires go, where I saw something that looked really, really good was Empire Toy Works. We had him on our show a couple episodes ago, and he was using like a gray shoestring for some cables, and it looked so cool because it had this texture to it, and it has, because it doesn't actually have wire through it, it gives it some weight. So it's not like you have to forcibly bend stuff to look like it's draping. It'll just do it naturally.
And
it actually looks really cool. Like hoses and stuff like that.
Gosh, is it Chris Shaler? Is that the guy's name?
It's Chris something, I believe.
Chris something, yeah. So he is, that guy, my gosh, that's some talent. I mean,
Oh yeah, yeah.
he has just got his own little world there. It's like, I mean, it's definitely the dystopian. Like his stuff is almost like you read like the expanded universe, right? You're familiar with that, like
Yeah.
Narshada. Okay,
Hmm.
yeah. So like that kind of world where it's like it's almost like a hint of Blade Runner, where it's like it's pretty dark. Or in where were they at in episode 2, where they were in those
Like the Outlander
subterranean
Club
neon
and stuff.
streets?
Yeah, the Outlander Club and
Yeah,
Coruscant.
yeah, Coruscant. Yeah. So places like that are just kind of still in the Star Wars world, but just that very, rainy, just dark, grimy, sleazy, just all these little parts in shops and alcoves and little, hidden staircases of miniature alleyways where you can get, killed and held to do who knows what. But it's he's got a great imagination.
Oh
And
yeah.
I would love to meet that guy. So that is I don't know what place that's from, but I found a piece that looked kind of like a cool, like a jail cell door. So that was an army green. It went to some kind of army station. So
Probably GI Joe, but
I don't think it's GI Joe either. I don't think that piece is.
yeah.
But it's some kind of obscure piece that I found that I'm like, it was like 50 cents. I found it at some flea market or something. And I thought, well, I'll paint this up. I'll make this some kind of, because inside Kessel, you're going to have these, and I did this long before. I did this like 11 years ago. It was so long before Solo came out.
Oh
I
really?
pictured it.
Okay.
Yeah, I pictured it as this, in the comics, it's this place that has slaves. I mean, like Han and Chewie and Kip Duran and Luke and all these guys were like prisoners there for a while, and they did hard labor there. And there's parts where you get prisoners that are just tucked away and forgotten by time, and they're just kind of like stuck in this little bitty, iron and rock fortress, begging and pleading for water or scraps or something. And so I wanted to put a couple of these guys like, stuck in this wall. And you can see kind of on the left hand side, I did these kind of like spice mine. I did these little holes that I wanted to just kind of put in.
Yes, all the little gems and stuff.
Yeah. And I got these little bitty gems that are kind of like, these are filler for like your table decoration or table art. And so I put these little gems together and I hot glued them and I stuck them inside this wall so that you could see like there's different types of spice, because like there's different colored spice in the Star Wars universe, right? So I got, I don't know, like green and tan and yellow and brown and something else clear. And I thought I'll just kind of put these in there and I'll just kind of see what they look like. And then this guy that I showed it to, his name is Rich Morgan, and he's like, we should, I'm like, I would love to put lights back here. And he's like, lights will actually make these things pop. And I said, but I've never done lighting before. So I bought a
hold on to that thought, because I do
Sure.
have a picture of some of the lit up stuff. Now, I definitely wanted to ask you about these doors, because it kind of matches the paint you had on that other piece.
Mhm.
But when I first looked at this, you know what it reminded me of?
What's
Wood
that?
burning.
Wood burning.
Yeah, it almost looked like it was made from wood, and all the lines and stuff were burnt on it, and it almost looks like grain, like wood grain a bit, especially on the right hand door. And so I was trying to figure out. I'm like, how are those made? It looks like it was laser cut. It looks like it was wood burnt, but I'm guessing it was just painted.
It was just painted, yeah. So what I did was I used those are Star Wars doors. Those are from some little diorama piece that came out in the early 2000s. They come as a dark gray, and they're more polished. I believe they're like part of an episode 1 diorama.
Oh, the only thing I could think of that would be a bigger door would be the feed hanger.
And that might be it. That might be where
Dun,
it's from.
dun, 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 maybe something
Yeah.
like that.
And what you see around it is that kind of like where the gray part is. You see that kind of like brownish yellow running. That is all. Those are liquid nails. So
Okay.
that's where I kind of like cemented them in, and I went over that before I finished the product with gray paint to blend that in. But yeah, those doors. The screen is from a box fan, and I put that in, and I painted it black, and then dry brushed it with some silver streaks, and then put a black piece of like linen behind it. So that's kind of like a door, like opening up to something that's mysteriously behind it. And I thought that'd be kind of a cool little thing to put in there to where you can just kind of create some depth.
Now, these are interesting little Greeblies. What exactly
Yes.
are they from?
Those are from the same kit. So those and the little box you see on the right-hand side, those are from the Pegasus model kits.
Okay.
And there's these little kits that you can that you get, and they all come that kind of standard medium gray. And so these were hours and hours and weeks of just taking these things apart, like off the sprue trees, and just painting them with, a dry wash, a black or a copper or whatever, and just making up whatever shapes you wanted. And I just chose to make some little crates there where you can have some. I have the block spice, and it's more like it's form ready to be shipped out. I have the crystals. It's kind of like the raw, where you're kind of excavating it or mining it or digging it out.
I know, I love it. And the little ice cubes.
Yeah, colored ice cubes.
So now these the Pegasus kits, are they something that's still around?
No, they stopped making them. And they don't make the kits anymore. They stopped making them in I think 2007 or 8.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, they seem pretty cool for just
Yeah.
little. And they go together in different ways, I guess, right? Because it almost looks like it's a system where you can kind of build stuff.
You can. Yep.
In
Yeah,
different
like a
ways.
snap kit. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's a shame. I love finding little things like that.
I've got some. I have some extra. I've got some pieces that I haven't even touched yet. So yeah, let's get together after this, and I can I'll get some your way for sure.
Now the guy standing there, is that a G.I. Joe
That is a
or
G.I. Joe. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, I'm told he's one of the Marauders, which I guess that's kind of like a.
Oh, okay, yeah, because I thought that the double hinged knee wasn't on a lot of G.I. Joes, and so I thought it was a Marauder figure. I have a couple, and it's nice because you can buy like just a different head, different hairstyles, and so
Oh, so there's the Marauder Task Force figures, which those are awesome, but this guy he's called a GI Joe Marauder, and the GI Joe
okay.
are like a gang of
Okay, got you.
yeah, thugs or whatever, and he just happened to be. I thought, I'll just put this guy in there. But yeah, he does look like one of the guys you would find on the Marauders Task Force.
Yeah. Yeah, I like their stuff. So this is on the outside of one of the boards?
Yep, that's one of the outside. That's one of the walls.
Yeah, just looking at some of the walls, it was kind of hard to tell the orientation of everything. I just like that. I really want to get into some toy photography.
Yeah.
At some point.
Yeah, that was.
This
If
is
you look at
cool.
the very top of that picture, so those two.
I know what that is. Y-wing engines.
Awesome, good.
Well, I picked up a vintage Y-wing too at the show.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, so I was looking at that engine a lot, but I would have recognized it anyway because I did have one as a kid.
Yeah.
So is this part of the Pegasus system that is the balcony?
Balcony is. Yep, the balcony is. And
Okay.
it's stuff that really wasn't supposed to go together in the same way. I just kind of made it work. It just, there's like parts you can just you can make your own whatever. The back door that both girls are standing in front of, that's Juno Eclipse, and I forget the lady's name.
Yasanisard.
Yeah. So she is standing in front of that's a Star Wars door. And
I thought it was one of mine initially because I sell that door that looks just like that.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, and I didn't think they ever made one on any of their sets, which is one of the reasons I thought, I'm like, is that one of mine?
Yeah. Yeah, it can definitely look like one of those for sure. But it's it's pretty cool. And then the left side piece that you can see that big piece on the left that's kind of starting.
You can tell it had pins.
Yes, it had. Yeah, at one time it had pins. That's from a GI Joe Fortress playset.
Okay.
That kind of sat flat on the ground, and I guess the hinges kind of made it fold up. But I'm like, that would be kind of a cool little playset to try to work in there. So.
Here's the one where you could kind of see a bit of everything.
Yeah, that's the lower level with all the spice mines and everything.
Yeah, and I recognized in the bottom left the X-Files.
I know, weren't those great?
Yeah, I had a couple of those figures because I was a big X-Files fan back in the day.
Oh, were you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'm gonna. I love the fact they just turned out to be great clone chamber.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because the Emperor has clone chambers all over the galaxy, right? Hidden. So I figured, well, why not put a couple in the spice mines of Kessel? Because for a while in the expanded universe, the Empire occupied Kessel and the mines, and they ran it for a short time.
Now on the bottom, the far bottom right corner, right down here, okay. What is that box? It looks familiar somehow.
That box is a that came with an X-Files figure too. It came with like how like the little X-Files, the clone chamber ones, how they came on a card with a figure. Okay, this came with a the same kind of card, but there was an alien inside that little bitty bubble thing.
I didn't remember that because I remembered almost all of them were the gurney, like the hospital gurney.
Yep.
With the body on, and then there was the casket thing. I didn't really remember that. I wonder if that was like a more rare one or something.
I don't know, but I saw a couple of those and thought, man, that'd be great just to put some pieces in. But yeah, It turned out well.
Yeah, a lot of times at yard sales, I don't tend to luck out on a lot of stuff. Like, and maybe it's a regional thing, but I always say, like, yard sales, you always find the same stuff. You find tons of baby stuff. You find
Yeah.
furniture that was worn out in like the 60s or 70s. You find a digital alarm clock. It's always the same one because everyone owned it. It's like you always find those things, but I almost never luck out and find like really nice Star Wars stuff. If I do find Star Wars stuff, I would actually say I would luck out to find Power of the Force 2.
Right.
I would be more likely to find Galactic Heroes or something.
Exactly. Yeah,
But
that's unfortunately what you find a lot of. So yeah.
But it also never occurs to me that could potentially be a good place to find just fodder for dioramas and vehicles and stuff.
Absolutely. And so long before 3D printing was mainstream, I mean, you had to do that stuff. You had to search for things to just make up and convert.
Well, and I really appreciate seeing people that have, kit bash stuff.
Right.
Because, as nice as printing is, and you can make exactly what you want, it is impressive when you can see someone say, I'm going to find innovative ways to use a part, or try to create something by doing something the old-fashioned way.
Right.
Even if at the end of the day it doesn't look as good, or it doesn't look, like it was made in a factory, the fact that they, could put the time and effort, to like carve something or whatever, I still find that really impressive, because I saw someone, they were working on, I forget what the project was, but I think they were doing like cantina tables and chairs, and I was like, I sell those for not a lot of money. You could like outfit your whole cantina with no work, just spend a little bit of money on it. But they were like hand making every single table and chair because they wanted to say they handmade all that stuff, and I can really appreciate that. I know, for example, I think I might have showed you pictures of my custom ATTE Rex's modified one from Rebels,
Right.
and they're like, I had never touched any 3D printing stuff when I worked on that. It was maybe only a year or two before I got into doing any sort of printed stuff. And every single thing on that was, cut out on a computerized CNC, or it was like wood bits. Like I have these little tiny lanterns, that are hanging all over. Well, I could have modeled that in no time and told the printer, just print me 10 of them. But it's like I had to hand make and hand paint every single one of those lanterns.
Right.
And, the railings and all this other stuff. And it was like an 8-month project.
Oh, yeah.
And, it would still be impressive if everything was modeled and like printed out. But I don't know, would it be as impressive as seeing someone have to do all that minutia of it?
Exactly. Right. Exactly.
So yeah, I always appreciate it. I mean, I've seen some people make entire ships out of cardboard, and they actually look pretty darn good.
I know.
I saw someone do I think it was the landing craft from Force Awakens, which is like one of the few vehicles from the original the sequel trilogy that I thought that would be really cool to have something like that.
Wow. Yeah. Like I said, it's a labor of love for sure.
Yeah. So one thing we haven't touched on, I didn't grab a lot of pictures from your site for this, was one of your custom figures, and I liked this one in particular because I think that species, I forget what CC10's species are,
Right.
but I totally could imagine one that was all buffed out and shirtless,
Right.
like as a pit fighter or something like that.
Right.
And I noticed the tats on him, which got
Yeah.
me thinking, what figure was this modified from? And I'm gonna take a guess. Tell me if I'm right. Was it a figure of The Rock?
It was.
Was it from Jumanji, maybe?
G.I. Joe.
Oh, okay.
He was Roadblock.
And he was shirtless? They had a shirtless version?
Yeah, Roadblock was a G.I. Joe figure, same exact scale, obviously. And they the color didn't quite match, so I kind of had to dirty up the chest and everything to match the head and all that. So it's always kind of greasy looking. But yeah, I've got him in the Spice Mines, kind of doing his.
Yeah, I kind of dig it. Like he so would fit as some sort of thug or fighter character.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now the paints you use on the figures. I've done a number of customs now at this point, and I generally use acrylics versus enamels, mainly for the fact that enamels, they almost are always glossy, which you tend not to want, but and you can't get the color variety like you can with the acrylics. But the problem I have is the acrylic doesn't like to stick real well, and so you always have to watch with your joints that it's almost like you in the crook of the elbow, like you would have to shave it down, because otherwise the first time you move that joint back and forth, it just scrapes the paint right off. Do you have any specific techniques that you use to avoid that kind of stuff?
So what I've done is I don't try to cake the paint on there. I will do, I guess, a series of light coats, and I will, if I need to paint something and paint the joints, I will sometimes try to see if I can stain that. Like I've dyed figures with like the clothing dye.
Mm-hmm.
I have put action figures in clothing dye and color them.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Interesting.
So that's a way that but that's one of these things that you can get away from getting choppy, kind of like the crusty joints where the paints would bulk up. But if you look at his forearms, right where his elbow would bend, but on the front side, you see it's pretty even there. So it doesn't look off color, or it certainly matches. And that's just one thing that I kind of got lucky on, because the joints were dark enough. A lot of times you'll see in Star Wars figures, especially, like the knee joint is bright white. And when the character, bends his knee, the whole figure that is now customized to look like it's brown has this glaring white, joint, this knee joint when he bends down.
Yep.
So,
especially the ankles, they don't like to paint the pins on the ankles a lot of times.
Correct. And I have also used Sharpies. So use a Sharpie, a black Sharpie, or get a whole thing of colored Sharpies. Those can also can work pretty well on those.
Okay, so getting a little bit long on time, but about what we normally do.
Yeah.
It it comes out, it almost doesn't matter the guest, it doesn't matter the topic. It's like we almost always go about the same amount of time within like about 5 minutes of each other.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, what projects are you working on now as far as figures, vehicles, dioramas?
So right now, I'm working on. I got asked this question at the ICCCon, and so I made 5 of those Millennium Falcons, and so I was asked if I would. I have one Legacy Falcon that's untouched left. So what I might do is weather the outside of that one, and bring that to sit down and do one of those again. But it's such a huge project. So
I just get tired thinking about how involved that was.
yeah. I mean, it's a lot. You're right. Right now though, I've been pretty pretty busy working on the different accessories for dioramas, right? So making the different like the different pieces that will accent your diorama, like maybe a chair, or maybe like a power cube or box, or maybe a set of like barrels or boxes or crates that you can put along with your diorama to kind of accent it. So I'm looking to buy a 3D printer, and kind of see where that goes. That's kind of what's on my horizon now. I've just opened up an Instagram account, which has been way overdue. So my Instagram account is scifidioramaguy, and of course my website is scifidioramaguy.com. And there you can find, my email address. My phone number is even up there. So if any collector, any customizer, wants to call and ask questions, or ways to do something, or advice on how to weather things or what have you, I'm always willing to kind of to give what time I can to help them with that.
Yeah, when I was on your website, I had to go back like 2 or 3 times because for whatever reason I could click on a couple things and I saved like a couple photos from it, and then I would go back and it would either like actually time out trying to load, or it just like would be a blank screen. And then I tried later on that day and I was able to get a couple more, and after about like 5 minutes I had the same issues. And then today I was able to get on and get a few more. So I'm not sure what you have going on, like some technical stuff or.
Yeah, I can check that. I'm not sure if it's just if maybe the sometimes when the traffic is kind of heavy, like if there's several people trying to access the same site, so if like maybe a certain time of the day people are looking at the pictures more than others, or if there's something on the back end that I need to talk to my web designer about. But yeah, I certainly appreciate you bringing that to my attention, and I will look into that, because that's not a good thing.
Yeah, because I had me worried. I'm like, I can't get on here.
But,
as far as customs go, I actually started working on a new figure the other day. I'm doing a Battlestar Galactica Cylon.
Okay.
And I'm pretty happy with how it's coming along, because I'm primarily a Star Wars guy, but occasionally like I have the one robot from the black hole because it kind of fits with Star Wars.
Yeah.
And I like sprinkling in some of that Star Wars adjacent type stuff in with my other figures.
Absolutely.
Indiana Jones was hanging out at the canteen or whatever.
Right.
And so I wanted to do a Cylon, and they never really did a nice articulated one. And I had actually only ever had 2 Battlestar figures when I was little. I had the Daggett, which I still have, and I had the Cylon, which I ended up selling because I'm like, why do I have these? It doesn't really go with anything. And he's kind of in like this weird pre-pose. And so I, about a year or two ago, I was thinking, I need to pick up a beater somewhere. And because if they got the really nice chrome on, the vacuum metallized chrome, they go for a lot more. And I'm like, I know I'm going to be painting this whole thing. I want to get the crappiest looking one I can. Why? Because the arms are going to come off, the legs are going to come off. So I pretty much need a head and the chest. And I was able to pick one up where almost all the chrome was off it for like $5. And I started working on it, and it is coming along way quicker and way better than I expected.
That's great, man.
Because it actually is a rather large figure. I mean, the 4-inch figures, we call them 3 3/4, but I swear they just keep shrinking a little bit. And so he was almost like a giant compared to the other ones. So I needed legs and arms that were a little bit more proportional to that really big upper torso. And I found the best one to really use would be Darth Vader. So I hacked apart one of my Vaders, and there's a method I've found for some stuff that preserves the joints, which is one of the problems you can run into. You can boil and pop a ton of figures, and the pins are all different sizes. So it's very hard to keep everything being able to hinge properly. So basically, I have a chunk of the lower torso still attached to the waist and the legs, and that's actually encapsulated in the Cylon body and just held in place, and it works great. And I did a similar method for the arms. So
nice.
Because every time you have to mess with pins or you boil and pop, I found some problems is the plastic gets so soft and it stretches and then it snaps and breaks off versus, actually popping. And so this, I was able to make it work really well. And I've done it with a number of other figures where I did an X-Wing pilot Leia. And so what I did was I took a female X-Wing pilot and I completely ground off the vest. And then I took a Hoth Leia figure, took her vest off, and I basically encapsulated the body in the X-Wing vest. Just, you have to sand down a little bit on the vest, a little bit on the figure it's going on, but it also gives it a very 3D appearance because it looks like it is a separate piece of clothing and not just molded to the body. So that's a technique you might want to try if you ever have any bulkier torsoed figures.
So was this for a modern figure?
Yeah.
So you took a female pilot, like one of the Twi'lek or
yeah, it actually was that particular figure. Yeah, and I completely hacked the torso apart and thinned out the plastic on the inside, so I basically had 2 halves of a vest.
Okay.
And then glued that around the Leia body, and I think I had to grind down part of the chest and back on the Leia figure, but you can't see that it was modified at all. And I've done that with some other figures too, where
I'd love to see that picture.
Yeah,
Just when, I mean, not now, obviously, but just whenever you can.
Yeah, I'll like email it to you or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I found out that sometimes that's a good way to take portions of a costume. I also did it for the chest on the chest armor on Lando Skiff Guard, where I actually completely cut that out and I glued it onto another figure to do one of the other Skiff Guards.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, but the results are actually really good.
That's cool. Yeah. Well, brother, you've been amazing, and I appreciate you guys having me on. Yeah, Matt's been kind of the quiet man here.
Yeah, I'm not bad about that.
That's all right.
So
but,
I love listening to you guys though. So ignore
I
the fake snoring noises though. Don't worry about that.
yeah, I kept hearing this noise, and so I muted your mic because I'm like, it sounds like someone breathing through a straw or like some sort of air.
It's what
kind of
happens when
noise.
you get when you forget to mute and you're having to do stuff. Don't worry about it.
So, I want to quickly go over recent pickups if we can.
Sure, yeah, sure. If we can kind of breeze through it.
Yeah, sure.
I got a long morning ahead of me. But yeah, recent pickups. What did you, Eric? What did you pick up recently?
So, at ICCC, I got an Off-World Jawa on card new, and I got it for cheaper than about $3 cheaper than my pre-order at Big Bad Toy Store that has gotten pushed back over the course of an entire year and probably isn't due till like fall of next year. And I was like, okay, screw this. I'm canceling my pre-order. I'm just buying one here. I picked up a Vintage Collection Bespin Han on card for $10. Why? Because it was only $10 and I only have one of them. He's a good figure. I picked up from you, Chris. I got the Haya Toys Kanan spacesuit from Alien.
Yeah,
A cool figure.
it is a cool figure.
I picked up the Concept Cloud Car, which I had bought at a show loose for $10 years ago, and it was at a show like 3 hours away, and we had some friends actually from the same town Matt's from that we would often meet at that convention and hang out, and I left it in their car, so it ended up going back to Ohio, and I said, I don't want to pay to have you ship it to me because then it's more than I would have spent on the toy. So next time we get together, just bring it along. And then the next show came up and neither one of us went to the show, or they didn't go to the show. And so it went on long enough, and eventually they ended up moving somewhere else. And I basically said, I know I'm never going to get it back. Picked one up new in box for $15. And so I'm like, oh, okay, I have it. And then I found someone else there actually did have it mint in box for $10. So
the Jawa?
Oh, no. The Concept Cloud Car from Power of the Force 2, where it was like the one pod.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, they did like a concept snow speeder, and then they did a concept cloud car. So, I really like the concept snow speeder. However, the cloud car, I realized why I had only spent $10 on it. It kind of sucks. But if you just want to repaint something and have it in the background, it's, $10.
Yeah.
The other thing I picked up was a Kenner Y-Wing. Original vintage one. It was loose. The electronics worked. It was missing the two nose cannons, which I'm actually molding some that I modeled myself, so hopefully they'll work. And the bomb was broken, so it had to be glued together in the two halves. And I would have been perfectly happy with a newer Y-Wing. The problem is so many I found, they had a permanent droid socket. So it was just like a droid head mounted on the back. And I'm like, I want to actually be able to put a droid in. Now, whether the classic vintage one will actually fit a newer droid, I didn't consider that fact. But I do like that the striping on it is yellow, which is how they appeared in A New Hope, where a lot of the other ones, they were like red or blue or some other different color. So
Right.
I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I got it for a decent price, and I'm actually considering doing some modifications on it, which I hate to do to a nice condition vintage one. But one modification I've seen people do is the cockpit. It's like the two front sections of the cockpit pivot open, and it's actually only the middle section in the movie that pivots open. And I've actually seen people selling that as a modification. I would just make my own, but I've actually seen people selling those on eBay, which is interesting. Wow. So that's what I got at ICC. The only other new stuff I got was, and this isn't Star Wars, but I got my first Jurassic Park dinosaur because they have a subline coming out called the Hammond Collection, which they're the dinos and some of the figures, but they're a little bit more articulated. Or in the case of the human characters, they have like additional sets of hands or heads or whatever. And I picked up a Velociraptor because it's super articulated, unlike the ones they normally sell. And the only other one I'm probably going to get is in the next wave, they're going to have a super articulated T-Rex, and I want to get that. As far as pre-orders, I love the Darksaber, and I wasn't going to get the Black Series Hasbro prop because of the price tag on it. But someone had one there at the show, so I was able to actually hold it in my hand and say, damn, this thing is cool. Okay, I'm going to buy one.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like $270 or something.
Oh, my gosh.
But I've loved it. I was actually, probably like 6 years ago now, I had started working on a Pre-Vizsla costume. His second outfit, where he's got like all the antenna on the helmet, and the jetpack was just so atrociously enormous, and I couldn't get it to harness right, and I just got frustrated and said the heck with it. So I kept the helmet because I had actually finished the helmet, and I just sold off the other stuff that was in progress. I also finished the jetpack, but sold that off. And always kind of like, oh, but I don't have a Darksaber, and I really like that. But I figure if I ever do a Mandalorian costume, well, he carried the Darksaber too, so I have an excuse to buy one.
Exactly. Awesome. Wow.
So Matt, what did you get?
Oh, not nearly as much stuff. My wave, my Ahsoka Fennec Shan, Death Watch Trooper, and 501st Yoda wave came in from Dorkside, and then even though I still have them on pre-order, 2 days ago I went over to Target and they're putting out a fresh case of droids of Boba Fett in R2D2. So both of those got, even though I still have the two on pre-order as well. But other than those, not so much since we last time we talked. So, but Fennec Shan is a great figure, by the way.
Yeah, I've heard. So, well, hopefully,
Boba Fett, the droids Boba Fett, I'm glad that he's actually out now, because I really like that cartoon version of him. So I'll keep that my target.
The only thing I wish they would have done would have give him the forked disintegrator rifle that he had in the actual droid or in the holiday special, but I'll use the old one.
Right.
I was gonna say, well, you can could always put him with Mando's rifle because pretty much based on the same thing.
Pretty much. Yeah, he's glorious. So even though, so I got him R2, and they were 8. They were the entire peg was 8 R2s and 8. Like they had just put it out that morning when I walked in there a couple days ago. Like, oh,
I don't think I'm ever going to see him. I'm in our area. It's like Target, Walmart. You can build a clone army of Lando, but that is it. That is all you're going to find.
Right. I mean, I've not really picked up anything, nothing exciting recently. Actually, I'm kind of, it's kind of disappointing. But I did get a Razor Crest.
Oh,
So
really?
I did order one of those. Yes. I thought, I'll see what happens because I backed the barge, and the Razor Crest. It's a cool piece. It's a great ship. I mean, I hear a lot of complaints and a lot of praise. So there's kind of two sides to that, but I'm happy with mine.
For me, like I got the barge, but the Razor Crest, I was never a really big fan of the design to begin with. It was always just kind of ho hum to me, and like I don't have my legacy Falcon's just kind of like tossed in a corner of my collection area because it's so big. What do I do with it? So if I had a Razor Crest, I have no room to even put it anywhere. Now, if they had done the Ghost, I would have pulled the trigger on that, I think.
Wow. Yeah, but it wouldn't be as well known, man, as the crest. Like we know it, like you said earlier, but normies might not know it as well because Rebels was a cartoon. So
yeah,
Chris, if you had a chance for any HasLab project, what would you do?
I think I would think either, and this is pretty aggressive, but a Death Star.
Oh.
People have been saying that for the longest time. When they first started talking about HasLab, people were like, maybe we'll finally.
But it's tough to get. I mean, how do you do the detention block and the trash compactor and where the ship leaves, and you can do the tractor beam and the swing where Luke and Leia go across the chasm. I mean, and the control room where they all talked and kind of planned what they were going to do.
I think if they did something maybe like the little miniature diecast line, maybe something like that where it all kind of connects together.
Yeah, like different parts of it. You're right. That would be good. I think that maybe even someone mentioned this at Celebration, and that's a creature cantina. That would be something I would think people would.
Yeah, I'd love that.
Would go for.
It would be so big to do it to scale because I wanted to figure out how I could make a full cantina, and I figured out that maybe scaling it even at like say 97% size, it would be like 3 feet by 4 feet. That might even be pushing it for a HasLab, I think.
Right.
But like the Death Star, I had a customer message me the other day, and he was asking about something specific. He said, "Oh, have you thought about doing like the Chasm Bridge?" And I said, "Well, I have the bridge stub, but as far as the bridge, anyone that's building a diorama, they're going to build it slightly differently. So if I came out with, I don't want to tell someone, okay, well, you're kind of limited to this size." I said, it's easier. People just build their own bridge, however long they want it to be. But he's like, you make like literally almost everything that's in the Death Star. I said, yeah, there's maybe like 3 other things that I could do, but I already make most of the parts. And the cantina, I've actually thought about doing like an alcove that just holds a couple seats and stuff.
There,
So
that's what I was thought, because we talked about that. Remember?
yeah,
Making the
so
booths.
someone could just buy, say, 5 booths, and they just arrange it however they want on their shelf.
Right, exactly. You'd have to have a main, like the bar would be the centerpiece. I mean, you'd have to
Yeah.
have the bar where you could just take and build that. So I think if HasLab did like the main bar with, that came with like an exclusive Whir figure or a blue snaggletooth or something, or maybe both, or what are those sisters that have the green and blue dresses on?
It would make sense to do the bartender, but well, and a lot of these sets they've had, like the Java set, they had 2 figures. So could you imagine if they did the War and Blue Snaggletooth? I think people would like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, see, if they were smart, and I'm not saying they are, but if they were smart, releasing a singular alcove, they would sell so many of them.
Yeah,
Because you think about it, what was their strategy with the carbon freeze chamber? Make people have to get 2, to really build it out. And what was their strategy with the Tanaviv walls? Well, if you buy multiples, you can, make them go around a corner or something like that. So that would be the right way to go about doing it. I don't know if they're smart enough to
do that.
latch
Yeah,
onto that, but be that as it may. So yeah.
awesome.
All right. Well,
yeah,
we should probably get going. It's like
probably. Yeah, it's late.
it went much later than I thought, but usually like we have a guest on and we just talk about their stuff, and with us we were kind of also talking about the convention, and we chatted a bit about your experience with with being in the 501st and stuff. So
Yeah, it was great.
really we probably haven't gone that much longer than we normally would have. So and just to let people know where they can find you again.
You can go to my Instagram handle is scifidioramaguy. So SCIFIDIORAMAGUI, or scifidioramaguy.com.
Oh, it's your own website. Nice.
Yeah, that is nice, because a lot of people don't, or they don't use it very much. So that was cool. I'm glad when when you didn't tell me, oh yeah, you have to get all the photos off Facebook or something.
No.
Or especially Instagram, because the problem with Instagram is you have to have an account to just like really even view anything.
You do, I know.
Yeah, my wife actually started one for Hole in the Ground, because I told her, I said, I do not want to have to set up another thing like that. Just if you want to do it, go ahead. And she set it up, and I don't think she's really done a whole lot with it, but she knows what the password is. I'm like, I don't even know what the login on it is. I've never been there.
Right.
But yeah, Chris, it was nice having you on.
You too, guys.
It was a lot of fun. I'm glad we got to meet at the show.
Absolutely.
Because like I said, I recognized Sci-Fi Diorama Guy. I'm like, I know I've seen this guy's stuff online on different websites and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool. And maybe we'll have to have you on again at some point. Matt and I talked about maybe at some point have a bunch of our guests, if we can all get them on together, do like a round table thing at the end of the year or something like that. Would be really neat.
Maybe talk about like the plus positives and negatives of the huge Jabba the Hutt Palace piece they're giving us next year. That'd be a great one.
Yeah. When we get it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We'll all have forgotten we pre-ordered it, and it'll be like, oh yeah, there was this thing.
There is that, exactly.
All right, so for all our listeners, come back for more when it'll probably be about a month. That seems like our schedule so far. Seems to be about one a month. And we will talk to everyone later.
All right, guys.
Kessel Run Collecting is sponsored by Hole in the Ground Production, where you can find a broad range of do-it-yourself diorama kits for 3 3/4 and 6-inch scale action figures. Check them out now at holeinthegroundpro.com. Be sure to like and subscribe on Rumble. Kessel Run Collecting is not affiliated with Lucasfilm or Disney. All sounds and images are property of their respective copyright holder.